Last Valentine's Day at the cabin, odd events that still don't make sense. This happened last Valentine's Day. I'm 33, and I thought a cabin in the woods would help me relax after my breakup. It had to be peaceful. I was wrong. The first night, I sat by the fire, feeling uneasy. I tried to push it away. It didn't work that night. I heard a tapping. I thought it came from the walls, but I couldn't figure it out. I stood up and checked the doors and windows. Everything was closed tight. It was silly, but my skin crawled. I sat back down, trying to concentrate on the flames. Then came the laughter. It was soft, almost a whisper floating through the trees. I looked out the window, hoping to see someone, but there was nothing. Just darkness. My heart raced, and I felt cold air brush against my neck. I blamed it on nerves, so the next day, I explored the cabin. I found small notes hidden here and there. They spoke of love and loss. Words like always and remember fell from the paper. Who left them? I shook my head, dismissing it as nonsense. That night, I smelled roses. I searched everywhere but couldn't find any flowers. I thought maybe they were lingering from someone else's time there. But I felt uneasy again. Shadows danced outside my window. I thought I saw a shape move past the trees. I didn't want to believe it. I thought I was losing my mind, but the laughter grew louder. It echoed, wrapping around me like a creepy hug. I grabbed my phone to call someone, but the signal was gone. I wanted to leave, but something drew me in. Maybe it was curiosity. I settled back in, hoping for things to get better, but it only worsened. That last night, everything changed. I heard a gentle voice again, softer than before. It felt urgent. I peered outside, but nobody stood there. Only the wind rustling through the branches. I felt a chill run down my spine. The laughter echoed again, louder, almost mocking. The shadows were everywhere now. I saw them clearly, creeping closer. I panicked. "Who is there?" I shouted. No answer. Just silence and the rustle of trees. It felt wrong. Something was off. I grabbed my things, ready to leave. As I reached the door, the laughter filled the air. "Stay," it seemed to say. I shook my head. I didn't want to stay. I looked back one last time. The cabin loomed behind me like a giant. I took a step, but I hesitated. I wasn't sure what I was leaving behind or what had chased me. As I turned, I heard someone whisper my name. Cold dread washed over me. I rushed down the dark path toward my car. As I hit the road, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The cabin vanished, hidden between the trees. I can still hear the laughter sometimes. It doesn't make sense. I don't know what happened there. It lingers with me, like a shadow that won't vanish. I wonder if I'll ever truly escape it. Chapter 2, Echoes of the Unseen. I drove away from the cabin, but my heart still raced. What had just happened? The shadows and the laughter felt real, too real. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see it follow me. My mind buzzed, replaying the night's events like a broken record. Days passed, yet the cabin haunted my thoughts. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd left something behind. I tried to distract myself, tossing aside the desire to know what really happened. I went to work, met friends, but all I could think about were those whispers. Finally, I caved. I decided to do some research on the cabin, figuring some local lore might shed light on my experience. I called a few friends who lived nearby and asked if they knew anything. They shared rumors about the area, tales of lost loves and tragic endings. Each story made my skin crawl. One friend mentioned a couple who had once rented the cabin. They had come for a romantic getaway, but they never left. Accidents, they said. A fire. Something about a broken heart that would never heal. I felt a chill run through me. Was this what I'd stumbled into? Was I part of their story now? That evening, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "You shouldn't have left," it said. My stomach dropped. Had someone taken my number? Or worse, were they watching me? I felt like I was being pulled into something much larger than I could understand. I ignored the message and tried to focus on dinner. But every time I heard a creak in the house, every time my phone buzzed, I flinched. I wanted to feel safe, but the air felt thick, filled with something I couldn't name. Later that night, I heard it again, a soft laugh, echoing faintly outside my window. I jumped to my feet, peering out into the dark. There was nothing. Just the same silence I had gotten used to. I still felt eyes on me, even if I couldn't see anyone there. Before I could talk myself out of it, I grabbed my coat and walked to the porch. The air was colder than usual, biting at my skin. I scanned the yard, half hoping for someone to be there, waiting, but there was only the breeze. Just when I was about to head back inside, I saw something on the ground. It was one of the small notes I had found in the cabin. "You will always be remembered," it read, the handwriting shaky, almost frantic. A shiver ran down my spine. How had it gotten here? That's when I heard it again, laughter, but this time it sounded closer, almost inside my head. Panic surged through me. I turned to go back inside, but as soon as I opened the door, the laughter stopped. I stepped back, the darkness wrapping around me like a shroud. I could feel it, the weight of something unseen. "Stop it!" I yelled into the emptiness, my voice breaking. I just wanted answers, but all I felt was dread creeping back in. I closed the door behind me, locking it tight. I leaned against it, breathless. That's when the whisper came again, clearer this time. "Stay with us." I froze. My heart raced, echoing in my ears. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I needed to go back. Chapter 3, The Return to Shadows. As dusk settled, I found myself driving back to the cabin. Each mile felt like a pull, like something was drawing me back into its depths. I tried to brush off the fear in my gut, telling myself I had to face whatever awaited me. This time, I wouldn't leave questions unanswered. When I finally arrived, the cabin stood silent against the backdrop of a deepening twilight. The place hadn't changed, it still looked as abandoned and eerie as I remembered. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever lay ahead. The whispers had called me back. After all, I stepped inside, the creaking floorboards groaning beneath me. The air was stale, thick with memories. I could almost hear the echoes of laughter, the remnants of what used to be. I moved cautiously, searching every corner, every shadow. But it felt like I was alone. Then I noticed something new near the fireplace. A small object sat there, an old heart-shaped locket, its metal dulled by time. I picked it up, feeling the cool weight in my palm. Inside was a faded photograph of a couple. Their faces were obscured, but the way they held each other told a story of love and loss. I felt a strange sadness wash over me. Who were they? And what had happened here? As I studied the locket, a shiver crept down my spine. The door slammed shut behind me without a sound. I spun around, heart racing, and pressed my back against the wall. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. Silence. Just as I was about to move toward the door, I heard it again, a soft, distorted laughter, echoing through the cabin. This time, it seemed to swirl around me like a thick fog. I felt trapped, the weight of the unseen pressing closer. I dropped the locket, suddenly too afraid to hold on to it. I turned to run, but something caught my eye, a flicker of light through the kitchen window. I hesitated for a moment, battling the urge to flee, but curiosity begged me to investigate. I approached slowly, dread pooling in my stomach as I moved toward the light source. Peeking through the glass, I saw a figure standing by the old oak tree outside. They were shrouded in shadows, their bodies silhouetted against the fading light. I couldn't make out any details, just the lingering sense of familiarity that made my heart race. The figure raised its hand slowly, pointing back toward the cabin. A chill ran through me. What did they want? Who were they? I felt a pull toward the door, like gravity was urging me to confront whatever it was. But fear gripped me, my instincts screaming to get out while I still could. With every ounce of will, I turned away from the window and stumbled back into the living room. That's when the whispers found me again, filling my mind with echoes. "Stay with us." I wanted to run, but my feet felt rooted to the floor. I needed to understand. I needed to know why I was brought here. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from behind me. I whirled around, and my breath caught in my throat. The locket lay open on the floor, but now the photograph was gone. In its place was a new note, one I couldn't ignore. "You belong here." My heart pounded. The air thickened, and the darkness converged around me. Just then, the figure outside moved closer, and I knew I had to make a choice. Stay? Or run? I didn't have much time. Chapter 4, The Confrontation. My heart raced as I stood frozen, staring at the note. "You belong here." The words echoed in my mind, looping with the whispers swirling around me. I felt trapped, like the walls of the cabin were closing in. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to breathe. I couldn't let fear dictate my actions. I needed to confront this. Whatever was happening here, I had to face it head on. I took one last look at the note and turned towards the door. The figure outside still lingered, their silhouette barely illuminated by the dying light. I could hear the distant rustle of leaves as the wind picked up. The whispers faded a bit, allowing me to think more clearly. Before I could change my mind, I pushed open the door. The sudden chill hit me like a wave. I stepped out into the darkness, the cabin's light fading behind me. As I approached the tree, my footsteps crunched on the gravel. "Who are you?" I called out, frustration mingling with fear. The figure remained still, their heads slightly bowed. I felt a mixture of dread and curiosity clawing at my insides. And then, they turned. Light from the cabin flickered just enough for me to see their features. My breath hitched. The figure was a woman, her face hauntingly familiar. A memory, like a film reel stuttering to life, played in my mind: birthday parties, laughter, and then silence. I stepped backward, struggling to maintain my composure. "It can't be you. You're gone." The woman smiled sadly, her eyes shimmering with something I couldn't quite grasp. "I never left, not really. I've always been here, waiting." "Waiting? For what?" I asked, anger bubbling beneath my nerves. "This is madness. Why are you doing this?" "Because you need to remember. You can't run from the past," she whispered, her voice laced with longing. "You have to choose." "Choose what?" I demanded, confusion thickening the air between us. "Stay or leave." "But understand, leaving doesn't mean escaping. The shadows remain." The wind picked up again, and the shadows around us deepened as if they were alive. Another crash resonated from the cabin, sending a shockwave of panic through me. I turned instinctively, half expecting something to leap from the darkness. "Don't go," she called, her voice fragile yet firm. "You don't understand what's at stake. The locket, it connects us. It ties your fate to this place." I hesitated. Could I trust her? The urgency of her plea twisted in my gut. "What happened to you? What is this place?" She took a step closer, her expression earnest. "You need to find the truth. The cabin will reveal its secrets, but only if you choose to face them." Suddenly, the memory of the locket pierced through my thoughts. "The photograph!" I exclaimed, realizing I didn't just lose an image. I lost answers that could lead me to the truth. Then, she glanced back towards the cabin. Momentarily, her face shifted, revealing a fleeting glimpse of torment. "Go. I'll answer your questions. But time is running out. You must act before it's too late." Before I could respond, she turned back to the shadows, her figure blending into the dark. I felt an overwhelming sense of loss. I needed to decide. In that moment, I understood I was no longer just a visitor, I was part of the story. The cabin demanded my attention. Without realizing it, I had one foot in the past and the other in an uncertain future. As I darted back toward the cabin, the whispers grew louder, the door slamming shut behind me as I stepped inside. I felt the pulse of the shadows surrounding me, almost like their hungry anticipation. Now I had to confront whatever awaited in the darkness. The secrets were ready to be revealed. But were they ready for me? Then everything went dark. Chapter 5, Echoes of the Past. I blinked, hoping for the sparks of light to return, but there was nothing. I was swallowed by an unsettling darkness. Panic started to creep in, and I fumbled for anything to give me a sense of direction or hope. My hand brushed against the rough wall, and I steadied myself. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding weak in the void. No reply came. Just silence wrapped around me, thick and heavy. I took a slow breath, focusing on the shadows, pushing back against the fear that threatened to consume me. Then a faint glimmer appeared, illuminating the floor. I squinted, the movement catching my eye. On the wooden floorboards lay a small object, my locket. It was open, the photograph inside glinting in the dim light. I rushed over, kneeling to pick it up. The face in the picture made my heart drop. It was the woman from outside, her smile frozen in time, yet so alive in my memory. I touched the photograph gently, feeling the cool metal frame against my fingertips. In that moment, I heard it again, the whispers. This time, they were clearer, more distinct. They circled around me, drawing nearer. Remember. Face the truth. The voice sounded like hers, urging me. I stood up abruptly, almost knocking the locket from my hands. My head spun as I looked around the cabin, desperate for a sign. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, frustration bubbling to the surface. "What truth?" The whispers rose to a crescendo, not answering my questions but wrapping me in confusion and dread. I felt the presence of something watching, waiting for my next move. "Please. I need to know," I yelled. As if in response, an old dresser in the corner creaked loudly. I hesitated, my breath catching in my throat. Was it a sign? I approached the dresser cautiously. It felt like a barrier between me and whatever lay hidden in the cabin. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, but the urgency to find answers drove me closer. As I pushed open one of the drawers, something fell out, a stack of letters bound with a fraying ribbon. I picked them up, the weight of them heavy in my hands. They looked old, their edges yellowed and fragile. I carefully untied the ribbon and opened the first letter, my heart pounding. Each letter contained frantic messages filled with fear, desperation, and love. My name was written in the margins of one with a shaky hand. There were mentions of the woman, of the cabin, and of choices made. The deeper I read, the more I realized the letters were from her, speaking to me from a past that lay buried under time. Suddenly, a loud crash erupted from outside, followed by a rattling noise. I jumped, clutching the letters tightly. I turned to the window, where the shadows outside thickened and twisted. Something was out there. A new wave of dread washed over me. I needed to know the truth, but now I was also searching for survival. I had stumbled upon the echoes of her past, but it seemed the cabin wasn't done revealing its secrets just yet. As I decided whether to investigate or retreat, I heard her voice again, clearer this time. "You must choose." I felt a strong urge to flee, but the locket in my hand was a tether, linking me to the enigma of it all. With trembling fingers, I tucked the letters into my pocket. I couldn't ignore what was happening. I had to confront whatever awaited me outside. Then, the ground beneath me trembled as something behind me shifted, and I heard a whisper louder than the rest, "Don't let them take you." I turned, heart racing. But before I could answer the call of the shadows, something moved in the darkness. Chapter 6, Last Valentine's Day at the cabin. My pulse quickened as I turned to face the darkness behind me. I took a cautious step back, an instinct to flee clashing with the need for answers. The shadows felt alive, swirling and shifting like smoke in the air. I squinted into the gloom, trying to discern if I could make out any figure. Then, a silhouette emerged, a shape darting just beyond my reach. I froze, my breath hitching. The whispers grew louder, urging me to remember. "Find the truth," one voice called, entwined with another. "Help her." Help who? The frantic thoughts raced through my mind. I clutched the locket tighter, its coolness a reminder of the woman in the photograph. I had to choose. "Show yourself," I shouted, my voice more defiant than I felt. But as the words left my mouth, silence swallowed them whole. I strained to listen, but the cabin settled into an ominous stillness. Suddenly, the window burst open, sending a chill through the room. I glanced back, and a gust of wind whipped through the cabin, sending papers flying from the desk. I stumbled as my heart pounded, feeling the presence behind me grow bolder. "Please. I just want to know," I yelled into the void. The screaming wind died down, and the atmosphere shifted once more. That's when a figure stepped into the dim light near the dresser. I squinted, trying to make out the details. It was her. The woman from the photograph, alive and ethereal, seemingly materialized from my memory. Her eyes held sorrow and urgency. "Run," she whispered, but it felt like a million memories replaying at once. "Don't ignore the warnings." "What warnings?" I demanded, stepping forward despite my fear. I wanted to reach for her, to pull her close and demand answers. "What happened here?" The air crackled with a warning. Before she could respond, a loud bang echoed from outside like a door slamming against the cabin. Whatever presence lingered beyond the walls was getting agitated. "Stay," I half pleaded, half ordered. "You can't leave me like this." But the moment I spoke, she started to fade. Her form blurred, becoming less defined. I felt a wave of despair wash over me. If she disappeared, would the truth vanish with her? "Find the last letter," she urged, her voice growing fainter. "It holds the key." Just as she dissolved into the shadows, I saw it, a letter beneath the floorboards where she had stood. I rushed to the spot, heart thrumming. I knelt down, trying to pry the board up, breathless with urgency. I needed to know what was hidden. Before I could lift it, the shadows surged around me, thickening as low growls echoed from outside. They were closer now, whatever haunted this place, and I knew I had to move swiftly. With one final heave, the board cracked open, and I snatched the letter trapped within. But the moment I held it, the world around me shifted. The shadows lunged at me, enveloping me in darkness. I stood there, clutching the letter, knowing that whatever came next could change everything. Would I uncover the truth, or would the shadows pull me into their depths? Chapter 7, Odd Events That Still Don't Make Sense. I stood frozen in darkness, the letter clutched in my trembling hands. The air thickened with tension, and those low growls transformed into a cacophony of snarls, echoing around me. My instincts screamed at me to run, but curiosity rooted me in place. What had I just unearthed? I tore my gaze from the shadows and glanced at the letter, the envelope slightly yellowed with age. The edges were frayed, as if it had been hidden for years. I needed to read it, to understand what connection it had to the woman and the warnings she had given me. Tentatively, I broke the seal and pulled the letter from its confines. Just as I unfolded it, a cold wind barreled through the cabin, rattling the windows. I struggled to keep the paper steady, forcing my eyes over the scrawled handwriting, desperate for clarity. "Dear Emily," it began, and my heart dropped. That name echoed in my mind, bringing a swirl of emotions. If you are reading this, it means the dangers I have foreseen have come to pass. You must stay away from the shadows. They are not what they seem. A chill raced down my spine. Who was Emily? Was it the woman in the photograph? I pushed on, reading through the rest of the letter. "The last Valentine's Day will be the end if you do not stop the spread." The ink spread at one corner, blurring the words. "Remember, the truth lies within the heart. Trust no one, not even me." I gasped, my pulse quickening further. This wasn't just a letter, it felt like a warning, a plea. I could feel the heaviness of the words pressing against my chest. The shadows inched closer, their forms writhing with anger and menace. I couldn't allow myself to be paralyzed by fear. I had to learn more. I carefully folded the letter and slipped it in my pocket, ready to face whatever came next. But as I turned around, a sudden light flickered from the corner of the room. That's when I saw it, a mirror hanging crookedly on the wall, a glint stretching across its surface, like a figure longing to escape. I stepped closer, heart racing. In the reflection, I saw not just my scared expression, but shadows shifting behind me, the growls intensified, echoing around the cabin like a warning siren. I whirled around, searching for their source. Shouts in the distance reached my ears, slicing through the menace. Voices I recognized. Jason and Mia were back from their hike. My heart raced with relief and dread. "Hey! Are you in there?" Jason's voice called. Just then, the mirror cracked, sending a spider web of light through the cabin. I felt the warmth of the light push against the shadows, scattering them momentarily but not entirely. Open the door! Mia shouted, urgency lacing her tone. I couldn't believe they were here. But how could I let them inside without exposing them to the shadows? Before I made a decision, I noticed something flash near the edge of the mirror, a figure that won mine. Someone was trapped inside, grappling with the darkness. I had to act fast. I needed to protect my friends and confront whatever this cursed place held. As footsteps rushed closer, the shadow snarled louder, now distinctly surrounding me as I faced a terrifying truth. Would I be able to reveal the secrets, or would it be too late for all of us? Chapter 8. The figure in the mirror. Fear gripped me as I worked to process everything. The growls darkened the atmosphere, circling around me, sharpening my urgency. I needed to make a choice, and quickly. Jason and Mia were just outside, but the haunting figure in the mirror was also demanding my attention. I took a deep breath, fighting the impulse to panic. I can't let them in yet, I whispered to myself. Whatever was lurking in the shadows could turn on them just as swiftly. I couldn't let them become part of this twisted tale. The figure in the mirror pulsed with a strange energy. It was a silhouette, nearly featureless but somehow familiar. I squinted, trying to see who, or what, it might be. The pleading look in its movement felt urgent, like it wanted to escape. The shadows clawed at the edges of the glass, trying to pull it back into their darkness. Emily, it whispered, the name echoing in my mind. No, it couldn't be. What was this connection? I looked back at the door where Jason and Mia stood, their voices urging me with every passing second. I need to find out more, I said under my breath. I stepped closer to the mirror, ignoring the rush of shadows that fought for my attention. I had to focus. Reaching out, I touched the cool surface of the glass. A rush of cold air cascaded over me, and suddenly, that familiar face was clearer. The woman with the wild hair and the soft eyes, the one from the photograph. Help me, Emily. Trust your heart, she whispered, her voice barely audible but filled with desperation. My heart raced. You're in there? I gasped. How can I help you? Before she could answer, Jason pounded on the door again, louder this time. Emily. Let us in. The intensity of the moment blurred my thoughts. I was torn. Could I risk opening the door? The letter had warned against trust, but I couldn't let them face the shadows alone. I glanced back at the mirror, and the woman nodded, encouraging me to make a choice. A sudden realization hit me, the shadows weren't just ominous. They were also a warning about something worse lurking in darkness. I stepped away from the mirror, still keeping it in my line of sight. Get back! I called out to Mia and Jason as I scrambled for the door, battling both shadows in time. With trembling hands, I turned the deadbolt, flinging the door open. Get in quickly! They stumbled through, eyes wide with confusion and fear. The shadows recoiled, some retreating into the corners of the cabin. I shut the door behind them, locking out most of the darkness. Are you okay? Mia asked, breathless, glancing around the cabin. There's something in the mirror, I stammered. Before I could explain, a sharp crack rang out. I spun around just in time to see the mirror shatter completely, scattering shards like dangerous confetti. The figure was gone, and the shadows lunged forward, furious for being ignored. Run! I shouted, not realizing until now how little time we had left. As we dashed away from the ruins of the mirror and the menacing shadows, I could feel a strange pull towards the heart of the cabin. The letter's warnings echoed in my mind. What was awaiting us, and what did it mean by the last Valentine's Day? Just as I reached for Jason's hand, the walls began to tremble. The wooden floor creaked underfoot. What else had awakened in this cursed cabin? We had stumbled upon something darker than I ever imagined, and it was demanding our attention. The air thickened with dread once again, and I knew we were far from safe. What horror lay ahead? Chapter 9. The walls have eyes. We didn't have time to think. I pulled Jason and Mia further into the cabin's shadowy depths, hardly registering the strange decorations that lined the walls. Old photographs hung crookedly, their subjects faded and forgotten. Each face seemed to watch us, their eyes glinting in the dim light like hidden secrets. "Emily, what is happening?" Jason's voice shook. I could hear the fear lurking beneath his calm facade. "I don't know. Just keep moving," I hissed, glancing back to see the shadows slither in response to our panic, their forms twisting and curling like smoke. The tremors intensified, rattling the floor beneath our feet. "What do we do?" Mia cried, looking around wildly, her expression torn between terror and hope. "Find a way out," I said, though I had no idea where we were going. Just then, I caught sight of a door at the end of the hallway. Its surface was warped, wood splintering slightly, as if something was pressing against it from the other side. "We need to check that door." I pointed. Jason nodded, his jaw set. We reached it in moments that felt like hours. I grabbed the handle and twisted, but it was locked tight. Benign darkness swirled around us as I rattled the doorknob. Come on," I urged. The walls felt alive, pulsating with our anxiety. Suddenly, there was an echoing crash from behind us. The shadows had reformed, lunging toward us with malicious intent. "Emily!" Mia shouted, panic rising in her voice. "It's coming!" In a frenzied burst of desperation, I threw my weight against the door with one shoulder, the splintering wood giving way just slightly. "Help me!" Jason pressed himself against the door alongside me, and together we pushed. The door caved inward with a loud groan, and we stumbled into the small room beyond. As I fell through, I froze. The space was unlike the rest of the cabin. Sunlight streamed in through grimy windows, illuminating the dust motes that danced in the air. Old furniture cluttered the room, but it was the walls that caught my attention. Every surface was covered in words, scrawled in red. "Help me," and "They're watching" stood out among the chaotic scribbles. I felt my stomach drop. This was a plea. But who had written it? Just then, the door slammed shut behind us. The faint light dimmed, and a chilling darkness wrapped around us. "What just happened?" Jason asked, stepping back. I could barely breathe. "I think we just trapped ourselves." Mia grasped my arm tightly. "What do we do now?" "Wait," I whispered, as a noise echoed from the door we had just entered. A scratching, then a thumping. The shadows that had chased us before were fighting to get in, relentless. Then I noticed a single piece of paper lying on a dusty table. With shaking hands, I reached for it. The words were shaky but clear: "The heart of the darkness is closer than you think. Find the last Valentine." I swallowed hard, decoding the message in my mind. What did it mean? The last Valentine's Day? Then I remembered the photograph from the mirror. The woman had said, "Trust your heart." "Guys!" I exclaimed, connecting the dots. "We have to find a way to the heart of this place. It's the only way to escape." Just as I turned to share more, the scratching ceased. I took a deep breath, waiting for the next sound. That's when I realized the walls were now eerily quiet. I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone anymore. I stared at the door, holding my breath. Someone or something was on the other side. The walls seemed to pulse as if they had lives of their own. A creeping silence filled the room, making each second stretch like an eternity. I could practically hear the collective heartbeat of Jason and Mia as we huddled in that dim space. I glanced at the doorway, the scratching sounds replaced by a thick, suffocating stillness. "Emily, what do we do?" Jason's voice cut through the tension. "Stay calm," I whispered, forcing myself to sound composed, even as dread pooled in my stomach. "We have to find that last Valentine's clue. It could be the key to getting out of here." I scanned the small room, eyes darting over the chaotic scrawls on the walls and the dust-coated furniture that loomed like forgotten memories. "Maybe it's hidden in this mess," I suggested, stepping toward the table where the paper lay. The moment I reached the note, a sudden crash shook the door, sending a jolt through my body. We all jumped back instinctively, eyes wide as the looming shadows outside groaned with displeasure. "Quick! Help me look!" I urged, flipping over dusty old chairs and tossing aside stacks of books. Emily, we can't. Mia hesitated, glancing nervously at the door. There has to be something here. I insisted, rifling through the remnants of a life once lived in this space. Then, something shiny caught my eye beneath the table. I dropped to my knees, brushing away the dust to reveal a small metal box, ornate and intricately engraved with swirling patterns. My heart raced as I lifted it. Maybe this held the answers we needed. Open it, Jason said, his eyes gleaming with curiosity, fingers trembling. I twisted the latch and lifted the lid. Inside lay an array of items, dried flowers, a crumbled photograph, and in the center a small Valentine card, yellowed but intact. My breath caught. Could this be it? Here it is, I exclaimed, holding it up triumphantly. Its front was decorated with tiny hearts, but the back bore a message: to my forever love, you are always in my heart. The moment I read those words aloud, a raucous cackling erupted from beyond the door. The shadows began to tremble, and the temperature dropped. They know, Mia gasped, fear electrifying her voice. Read it again, Jason urged. Something will happen, I'm sure of it. Heart racing, I took a deep breath and recited the message again. To my forever love. As the last word left my lips, the shadow screamed and surged forward, breaking through the door in a whirlwind of darkness. I instinctively dropped the Valentine card, watching it flutter to the floor. The shadows recoiled as if struck, just as light burst from the box, engulfing the room in a dazzling brightness. Get back, I yelled, shielding my eyes from the radiance. For a brief moment, time seemed to stand still, the oppressive darkness fading into the ether. It felt as if the house itself sighed, releasing a tension that had clung to it for ages, but then reality crashed back. The light subsided as quickly as it had come, leaving us breathless. I opened my eyes cautiously, only to see the room had transformed. The walls, once chaotic with fear, were now adorned with warm hues and gentle memories, echoes of a life that had been before destruction had taken its toll. What just happened? Mia whispered in awe, slowly peeling away from the wall. I don't know, but my voice trailed off as I looked back at the table. The metal box remained, a faint glow still flickering from within. I knelt to retrieve it, trembling with anticipation. But as I opened the lid once more, something shifted again. Time began to warp, elongating as I sensed the presence of something significant yet unknown. But before I could think, a sudden draft swept through the cabin, rustling the flowers and blowing the remnants of the past into a swirling dance. I felt a pull, a gravitational shift in the air, as if the very fabric of reality was splitting apart. I think we're leaving, I shouted. Hold on. We held tightly to one another as the shadows retreated and the outside world flickered in and out like a poorly tuned television. The last thing I saw was the heartfelt embracement of the figure from the mirror, a fleeting glimpse of gratitude etched upon her face. Suddenly, everything went white. The brightness engulfed us, the warmth kissing our skin before swallowing us whole. Then, I blinked, the cabin vanished. We found ourselves on the road, the sun rising in the distance, birds chirping, awakening the world all over again. The cabin was nowhere in sight, and yet it felt like a part of me remained behind. Are we okay? Mia asked, still holding onto my arm, but I didn't have the answer. I looked around, searching for any trace of the cabin's darkness, but all I felt was an eerie calm. The shadows were gone but not forgotten. I think we are. I paused, glancing back toward the woods, a lingering unease washing over me. It didn't feel entirely over. I just have this feeling that something will always linger beneath the surface. A part of the past we can never fully escape from. The others nodded, an understanding passing silently between us. I knew we had survived, but some questions would remain unanswered, and the shadows might still know our names. And to this day, I still think about returning. Every now and then, I find myself driving past those woods, my heart wavering. I wonder if the cabin waits quietly, always ready to beckon someone else with its secrets, the strange stories of a last Valentine's Day that refused to release its grasp.